Hi, good morning. Good to have you with us today. So we're working our way into the fifth Sunday of Lent. And we continue to be in our theme of seeking honest questions towards a deeper faith. And this week we're in the book of Ezekiel, the Old Testament book of Ezekiel. The question for us this week is, can these bones live? So the context for the Ezekiel reading. The Israelites at this point had been in exile for a long time, away from home, away from the temple, in a strange land. And they've been away and they've been in exile a long time, and they're feeling depressed. They're feeling despair. They're feeling hopelessness. They're feeling like they're dead. And so God takes Ezekiel, one of the prophets in exile. God takes Ezekiel out to this valley, a place where war had been. And in that valley is just strewn with bone upon bone upon bone upon bone. Dry, dead bones. And God says to Ezekiel, can these bones live? And Ezekiel responds, well, only you know. And God tells Ezekiel, prophesy to these bones. Tell him to listen to the word of God. So Ezekiel does, and the bones begin to connect, and then there's skin, and there's flesh, and there's muscle. But they're not quite alive. God says, prophesy for breath, and Ezekiel prophesies for breath, and they begin to breathe, but still they're not quite alive. Breath alone is not sufficient for life, God says. For those bones to really live, they need the Spirit of God. For those bones to experience life, for the Israelites to experience life, they need the Spirit. They need that Spirit of hope, that source of real life. So what God is essentially doing is telling the Israelites in Babylon that life is possible even in the midst of where they're at. That death has never the last word, that God always has the last word. But there's a couple things I want you to hear in the story as you go read the story. God could make those bones come to life on God's own, right? But God chooses Ezekiel to make it happen. And we read in the scriptures all the time, Old Testament and New Testament, where God uses God's people to make God's reality. That God doesn't act alone. God uses you to bring life. And God asked Ezekiel to do what it is that Ezekiel does. He asked Ezekiel to prophesy, not to sing a song, not to bake a pie or bake cookies, but to prophesy. But God doesn't ask you to do something other than what you already are. So as we consider this fifth week of Lent and can these bones live, we know that a lot of us at times in our journey are parched and dry and lifeless. Who around you is lifeless? Who around you could use some hope? And what gift do you have that God can use to give them hope, to give them life, to bring the Spirit in? Sometimes we get overly concerned about memories of what was, and not enough concern or consideration to the seed which could be. Again, breath alone is not sufficient for life. How do we bring God's source of hope to all? Hope to see you soon. Take care.